Okay, so let me share my PowerPoint slide. Yes, okay. So I think that you can see my PowerPoint, right? Yes. Okay, is it, can you see my PowerPoint, guys?
Yes,
Yes,
Pak.
bro.
All right.
Yes, yes, sir.
Thank you, thank you. So, yeah, today we're going to learn about the money supply and the central bank, and we learn about the functions of the central bank and how they intervene with the economy, and then how they manage to manage the supply of money, yeah, and then how they can influence, yeah, the economic activity by controlling the money supply. Okay, so before we go to the role of bank, yeah, the functions and the money supply and how the government control the money supply, we need to learn about the money. Yeah, so what is money? Yeah, so money basically is a mean of payment. Yeah, and it is a store of value. So if you have wealth, so the money can be a store of value. It store your wealth, something like that. Yeah, and then it is a unit of account. Yeah, it is used as a, as a unit of account. So these three are the functions of money. So the first one is money used as the mean or medium of exchange. It is the medium of payment. So if you want to get something, you need to bring money. You need to pay with money. Yeah. So before we have money, yeah, we used to do barter. To do barter. What is barter? This is a direct exchange of goods and services for other goods and services. For example, yeah, Pak Ubed, yeah. For example, let's say that I need 1 kilogram of rice. Yeah, so this 1 kilogram of rice is what I need. And then I am a farmer and I grow, for example, tomato. I need rice and I grow a tomato. Barter is the system where I go to the market and find somebody who has rice to be exchanged with my tomato. And then we will, make an agreement like in what amount, uh, in what terms, yeah, of exchange that we will conduct. Yeah, for example, the guy that has rice, he said to me, I want to exchange my rice to you, Pak Ubed. Yeah, if you can give me 3 kilogram of tomato. So I exchange my 3 kilogram of tomato with 1 kilogram of rice. This is what we call barter. Okay, so we exchange good with good, or we exchange service with services, or we exchange service with good, or vice versa. This system is very difficult because you need to find someone who has your need and willing to accept what you have. This is very difficult to find a person like that. For example, I am a farmer of tomato. I grow tomato, right? And there is a guy in the market who has rice, but he is not willing, for example, he is not willing to exchange with my tomato. So he only wants the rice to be exchanged with, for example, medicine, because, for example, he is sick or his family is sick and he needs some medications. So he will not exchange the rice that he has with the tomato that I have, because uh, he doesn't need tomato. He needs some medicines. So the barter system is very difficult. It has so many weaknesses. And then there is the money system come. Yeah. So the money that we have is a means of payment because everybody accept the money as the method of payment, and it used as a unit of account. Yeah. Imagine if you don't have money. Yeah. Imagine if you're still in the barter system. Yeah. You as the rice guy, yeah, and you are willing to exchange your rice for several goods, for example. So you will have a lot of unit of account. For example, I have 1 kilogram of rice and willing to exchange for 3 kilogram of tomato. And I'm also willing to exchange for 5 kilogram of vegetables. And I'm willing to exchange for, let's say, 2 kilogram of uh, carrot. And I'm willing to exchange, the list goes until it never ends. The list will goes until the guy that has rice did not need anything anymore. So when you have a barter system, your unit of account for exchange will be very long. But if you are trading in the system of money, then the money will become the unit of account. For example, let's say that if I have rice for 1 kilogram, it can be exchanged to, for example, 20,000 rupiah. Okay. If I have 1 kilogram of tomato, yeah, it can be exchanged to 5,000 rupiah, and so on, so on. So the money brings activity easier. The money brings exchange more easy. Yeah. So it becomes the unit of account. Last but not least, the money can be a store of value. It can be the store of your wealth. For example, the more wealth that you have, the more money you have. And it can be a good media of storing, because money made from, for example, metal. Before we have gold and silver as the bimetallic money. Yeah. Now we have a fiat money, the paper money. It is very strong. It can last for a long time. What do you What do you think if we have, for example, food as our money? It can rot, yeah, it can go bad, it can go bad, because food will not last long. But if you have, for example, yeah, gold or silver or a paper money, the fiat money, to be the money that we exchange, it will go for a long time. Yeah, because it will last for a long time. So it is a good store of value. So the wealth that you have will not go away because you're storing it in the form of money. Okay. So yeah, money, the first function of money is the mean of payment. Yeah, instead of the barter, we, of course, yeah, money system has more benefits compared to the barter system. Yeah, and it is the medium of exchange, the mean of payment. It is what seller generally accept and buyer generally use to pay for goods and services. Okay, so the first function of money is to be the means of payment, to be the media of exchange. All right. The second one, money is a store of value. Yeah, it is an asset that can be used to transport purchasing power from one time period to another. Yeah, guys, before we have a good money, for example, back then in the history, we have salt to be used as money. We also had uh, precious stone. Yeah, precious stone also to be used as money. Back then, for example, in the prisons, yeah, cigarettes, they act also as money. So before we have a good money, yeah, these are goods, right? Goods, yeah, and they act as money because during the history, back then in the previous days, some communities they use salt as money. Some communities they use precious stone. Some communities they use cigarettes to be used as money. So these are goods money. And the problem with the goods money is that goods money they rot. For example, salt. Salt, if you touch salt with water, it become bad. It become liquid. Yeah, so salt will not last for a long time. That goes the same if we use food as our money. Food will not last for a long time. Yeah, so money should be in the form of metal, in the form of gold, or in the form of silver, when it can be a store of value. So, even though that we are going from one period to another period, it will not go bad. It will not go rot. Yeah. So yeah, money function as a store of value. And also, the money is also a liquid asset. Yeah. Do you know what is a liquid asset? Yeah. In fact, money is the most liquid asset that we have. So, liquidity of asset means that how fast your asset can be turned into money. For example, okay, you have two kind of asset. You have, let's say, you have a car and you have a house. Which one is more liquid? Which one can be transformed into money faster? Is it a land, or is it a house, or is it, for example, a car? What do you think about it? Which one is more liquid? Which one can be turned into money faster?
A
Okay,
car.
a car. Yeah, who just answered my questions? Who was answering my question?
Me, sir.
Mas siapa? Arjun? Bukan.
Zaki, Zaki.
Oh yeah, Mas Zaki. Thank you so much for your answer, Mas Zaki. That's a correct answer, yeah. So car is more liquid than house because we can sell car faster compared to selling house. It is very hard nowadays to sell a house, and it is faster nowadays to sell car compared to house. Now let me ask you a question: which one is more liquid? Yeah, gold and car. Which one is more liquid?
Good,
Which
sir.
answer?
Good.
Gold. Yeah, gold is more liquid compared to car because everyone, everyone's wants gold. Yeah, everyone's wear jewelry. Yeah, necklace, ring, earpiece, and etc. So so the gold is more liquid compared to car. And in fact, the money is the most liquid because the money itself is a money, so it is liquid. Yeah, the most liquid asset. It can be exchanged in a very fast way, so you don't need to have, you don't need to spend time to transform for to transform because money is the liquid asset. Okay, so this is the function of money, and the third function is a unit of account. You remember what is a unit of account? It is a standard unit which provide a consistent way of quoting prices. Just imagine, if you have a barter system, you'll be uh, very troubled because when you need something, you need to have many things. Okay, I don't know uh, why can't I erase this? How do I erase? Oh, very strange. Yeah. So it is a standard of unit that provide consistency when quoting prices. So for example, let's say that I have 1 kilogram of sugar. Okay, so 1 kilogram of sugar can be exchanged by, for example, 20,000 rupiah. Okay, this is the money system. Imagine if you have a barter system, how long the price quote will be. For example, for 1 kilogram of sugar, you'll need to exchange it with, for example, 3 kilogram of apple, okay, and then 2.5 kilogram of orange, and then let's say 1 liter of milk, for example, and so on and so on. It just makes the things more difficult. It makes more time. So money become a good way or a good media of a unit of account. Okay, from here, do you understand? Do you have any question for the function of money? There are 3 functions of money: medium of exchange, yeah, unit of account, and store of value. Okay. Now we will learn about the commodities money, the good money. Yeah. It is item used as money that also has intrinsic value in some other use. So what is the example of commodities money? The good example of commodities money is gold and silver. Okay. It has what they call an intrinsic value, and it has what it's called an extrinsic value. You need to be able to differentiate what is intrinsic and what is extrinsic. Intrinsic, okay? Look, for example, I have my necklace and it is made from gold, yeah? And if I burn this necklace and it becomes a liquid gold, or it become a coinage gold, coin gold, yeah? Let's say that this is 5 gram, 24 carats. Okay, this is 5 gram and 24 carat. Yeah, this 5 gram 24 carats is the quality of the gold, right? The quality and the quantity of the gold. Do you understand? This is the quality and the quantity. This is what we call the intrinsic value. Okay, and then you have what we call the extrinsic value. What is the extrinsic value? It is the value which is stated in the coin. For example, I have, let's say, 500 rupiah. Do you know the coin of 500 in rupiah? What it is made from? Is it made from gold or silver? Do you know, guys?
Silver, I think so.
Silver? Okay, let's say it's made from silver. Yeah. Oh yeah. There is two. There is one made from gold. Yeah. The yellow color, and then the silver color. Okay. Let's say that it's made from silver. Okay. The silver has intrinsic value. You need to weight how much its weight in the silver. Let's say that it is 2.5 gram, and it is, for example, 15 carats, let's say. So this is the quality and the quantity of the silver. This is what we call the intrinsic value. And the extrinsic value is the value which is written on the top of the coin. For example, if the top of the coin here is written 500, meaning that it has an extrinsic value of 500 and an intrinsic value of 2 gram and 15 carats of silver. Do you understand? So the intrinsic value is the value that it has, the quality and the quantity within it. But the extrinsic value is the value which is written on the top of the coin. Sometimes what is written, the extrinsic value, may not be equal to the intrinsic value because of the price fluctuation. Do you understand? Okay. All right. So before we have what we call the bimetallic system. Yeah. So our money was gold and silver. back then in the past. All right. So it was the bimetallic system. We were using the bimetallic system, meaning that the gold and silver were used as money. So our money uh, gold and silver, and then people are starting to use kind of the certificate of gold and silver because they have difficulty when moving the gold and silver. For example, you want to buy food in other city, you need to bring a lot of gold and a lot of silver, right? And that's troublesome. It will make some trouble to you because you need to carry the gold and you need to carry the silver, and then you need to go far away, yeah, to buy only to buy just a food, for example. Then people will put it in the place. It was a bank back then, and they put their gold and they put their silver in the bank. In return, they will get what they call a certificate of gold and certificate of silver. And then people, they don't need to carry gold and silver anymore. They just need to bring this certificate. This is the origins of fiat money or the paper money. So back then, the paper money is backed by the gold and the silver. Bank cannot bank cannot make a certificate if they don't have gold. You cannot make a certificate if you don't bring gold to the bank, if you don't bring silver to the bank. That was the history of money before, when we used the bimetallic system. Bi means two. In Greek, bi means two. Okay? And then it comes the certificate system until in the America, and it was a long history. And then in the Bretton Woods, yeah, in the Bretton Woods agreement, America, they don't back their money with gold anymore. Before, the dollar was backed with money until it becomes greedy. Yeah, America become greedy, and they want to become richer and richer, and then they start printing the money without having gold. And then the Europe, their allies, yeah, not start noticing this trend, and they ask the gold, they ask the back system, but America don't have gold. So the system was broken. Nowadays we don't have money backed with the gold. That's why it has a decreasing power. The inflation that we have, the money that we have, yeah, because it's not backed by gold or backed by silver or backed by any precious commodities, it loses its value. Okay, let me ask you a question. When you were in primary school, in SD or in SMP, how much did you buy bakso for? What was the price of bakso? Hmm?
I think around 5,000 or 7,000.
5,000, 7,000. Thank you, Rafi. Yeah, 5,000, 7,000. Now, if you go to restaurant, what 5,000 and 7,000 give you? Yeah.
Es teh, sir.
Mineral water, sir.
Mineral water es teh. Yeah. Why? Why does it happen? Because the money losses its value.
Value.
Because what? The money is not backed by gold or backed by commodities like before. Can you imagine that, guys? Okay, let me compare to you why we should have the money backed up with precious commodities. Do you know Rasul, yeah, our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? I'm sorry if you are a non-Muslim, but I just want to tell you a story from our Prophet. Okay, so our Prophet, he bought, yeah, he bought wait, he bought, yeah, a goat, yeah, a goat with 1 dinar, yeah. So Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, peace be upon him, I'm sorry for you guys that are non-Muslim, but I just want to tell you a story how strong if we have a money backed by gold. Yeah, Rasul, it was I don't know 1,500 years ago. Okay, yeah. So he bought a goat with 1 dinar. And do you know 1 dinar? How much? How many grams? It says that 1 dinar is 2.5 grams of gold, pure gold. Yeah. So in today, in our day, yeah, can we buy gold with 1 dinar? That
Yes.
yeah. Yes, the answer is yes, we can. Yeah. Okay. Why? Because you have 2.5 gram pure gold. Yeah. And this 2.5 gram equal how much rupiah? Let's say, for example, 1 gram equal 2 million. Yeah, 2 million rupiah. Okay. So meaning that if you have 2.5, yeah, 2.5 times 2, yeah, 2.5 times 2, you have 5 million. 5 million rupiah. And with 5 million rupiah, you can still buy a goat. Imagine. So the value still there. The value is not decreasing. So with 1 dinar, we can still buy a goat. 5 million rupiah, you can find a very nice goat. Yeah, this is where we have a money in the form of gold or silver, or it is backed by gold or silver. But if you are, let's say, ya, before tadi Mas siapa tadi? Mas Raffi kalau nggak salah ya. Raffi said that when he was in the primary school, yeah, he bought bakso for 7,000 rupiah. Yeah. But now, today, in order to have one nice portion of bakso, at least you need 15,000 rupiah. Yeah. So just to buy the same one portion of bakso, you need to pay double, more than double. Yeah, more than double. Yeah. So I think we have a wrong sign. Yeah, double, more than double should be like this. You have more than double. It increased twice. Yeah. Why? Because the money lost its value. Because it is not backed by any precious commodities. Yeah. That's why the system is not good because we have a very weak monetary system. Okay, let me continue. Yeah, fiat or token money. Yeah, they are items designed as money that are intrinsically worthless. What does it mean? Intrinsically worthless. The paper money, the paper money, and the token money. The NFT and stuff. Yeah, they are an item designed as money which are intrinsically worthless. It does not have an intrinsic value. Now, our money, look at this. Yeah, for example, I have 5,000 rupiah. This 5,000 rupiah that I bring with me right now, this 5,000 rupiah, does it has any intrinsic value? It's just a it's just a sheet of paper, right? Does a sheet of paper has an intrinsic value?
No, sir.
No. A paper has no intrinsic value. So, so it can lose the value easily. Imagine one day, for example, the government is not does not recognize the fiat money, the paper money, to be a medium of exchange. Can we use it as a medium of exchange if the government cannot recognize it? We cannot. Yeah. That's why in the money that you have, it always states that the central banks recognize this amount of value to be a formal medium of exchange. It is protected by law that the central bank recognized it, blah, blah, blah. Because it has no intrinsic value. That's why the currency is very weak. It loses its value. That's why we have what we call the legal tender. What is the legal tender? It is the money that the government has required to be accepted in settlement of debt. Imagine you are forced by the government your wealth in the form of paper, piece of paper, not in the form of piece of gold, in piece of paper. Imagine if the government tomorrow does not recognize this piece of papers as wealth, as medium of exchange, you can lose all your wealth in one night. Yeah, because what? Because the government is doing what they call a legal tender. They are forcing us to use money, to use a sheet of papers and make it as the medium of exchange. That's why we always see the currency debasement. What is the currency debasement? It is the decrease in the value of money that occurs when its supply is increased rapidly. The money in the conventional economics act as commodity. Although it is a very bad commodity compared to gold and silver, they always imagine the piece of paper as a commodity. That's why we are having a currency debasement. We are having a value loss because when you have a commodity, the higher the supply that you have, the less the value, the less the price, right? When you have an increase in supply, you will have a decrease in price, the supply and demand theory. That also applies when you use money, when we use money in the form of piece of paper, because the paper acts as like a commodities, but it has no intrinsic value. Yeah, when the supply of money increase, when people have more money, its value will decrease. This is a very nice theory in economics. When we have a money supply increase, when people have more money, what will have, what will the value of money become? The money value become decrease. Yeah, like a commodity. When you have more supply, the price decrease, right? The value of money will decrease. And how do you explain this? When you have more money supply, people have more money. What do they do? What do they usually do? They will consume more, so the consumption will increase. Consumption increase, yeah, will lead to the price increase. Price increase mean what? Inflation. Inflation means what? The loss of money value. Yeah. So the more money that people have, the more consumption that people have, the prices will increase because the supply curve, they cannot rise as fast as the demand curve. You know, the supply curve depends on productivity. It depends on factor of productivity. Can we increase factor of productivity in one night? Can we increase the land in one night? Can we increase machine in one night? It has a long-term orientation when we speak about supply, but the demand, it can increase in one night. For example, if tomorrow is New Year, everybody will consume. If tomorrow is Eid, everybody will consume, right? So the more money supply, the more money that people have, the more consumption. And this more consumption will lead to price increase. It will lead to inflation. What does it mean, inflation? Inflation means currency debasement. It loses its value. Okay? All right. Do you understand from this? Do you understand, guys? Do you have any question? Is it interesting or not? Or are you confused with what I'm just explaining? Please, if you have any question, do not hesitate to ask, okay? Yeah. So again, because money is not backed by gold, it's not backed by precious commodities, yeah, it lost its value. And we have a theory, when we have more money supply, when people have more money, they tend to consume more, and the consumption will increase, and this consumption increase will increase the price, and make the value of the money lower. And once we have a lower value of money, yeah, we have an inflation. Yeah, that's where the story is, you know the story goes. So we have a currency debasement. All right, now let me explain to you about the measure of money supply in a country. So we are measuring money. How do we measure money? Usually we measure money with M1, M2, and M3. Yeah. Each country has different definition, but I think they always have the same foundation. Okay, so first, let us learn about the M1. This is the transaction money. This is the money that we exchange, that the people use. Okay, this is the money that are directly used for transaction. This is the money that me and you and he or she, all of us have. And we use this as in our daily transactions. So the M1, let's look at the definition of one. M1 is currency held outside banks. So this is the currency, the money that is outside the bank, plus the demand deposit, the deposit that you have in your bank, plus the check, the traveler check, plus other checkable deposit. This is the deposit means that the money that you put in your bank and you can easily take it. We call this demand deposit or traveler's check or traveler's deposit. So the M1 means that the money that we use outside the bank and also inside the bank, where it is easily for us to take it. Yeah, this is the M1. At the M2, this is the broad money. It is broader in definition. We call it also M2 is broad money, meaning that M1 plus saving account plus money market account and other near money. What is near money? It is a close substitute for transaction money, such as saving account and money market account. So this is an additional definition of money, but usually saving account here, it takes us longer to take the money from the bank compared to the deposit account. Okay, so this is I'm sorry, the deposits account are longer to take than the saving account. So the M2, the broad money definition, is the M1. So the money that are circulated in the economy plus the deposit account, right? Here, the demand deposit. Yeah, the demand deposit. So this is the deposit that you have in your bank, deposito. But the M2 money, it is broader. It also includes the saving account that we have, the money market account that we have, and the near monies. Okay? So this is what they call the broad money. Yeah? So the problem is that every country has its definition on M1 and M2. Like for example, in Indonesia, it has a specific rules which regulate the circulation of M1 and M2. Yeah. So beyond M2, there are no rules for deciding what is and is not money. This poses problem for economics and those in charge of the economic policy. All right. So the money supply, can be measured in terms of M. So we have M1. This is the money which are circulated outside the bank, and then we have the money two. Yeah, the money two is the broader money. Yeah, it has the M1 plus the saving account and other near monies. Yeah, and then we have a broader than M2 money. Yeah, so I think the books only introduce you M1 and M2. Okay, so let me go. Now we will talk about bank. Yeah, why we have to understand about bank, because the bank is the institution of financial intermediaries. So this is the place where people put their money to and take the money from. Okay, so let me just go back a few seconds. Okay, let me continue. So banks and other institution, they act, as the link between those who have money to lend and those who need money to borrow. So the financial intermediaries, it is an institution where people who has money to lend meet with people who needs money to borrow to expand the business, investment, and etc. We call this the financial intermediaries. We have bank, we have the investment, for example, investment corporation. Yeah, we have also micro banks. Yeah, cooperations, and etc. Yeah, so the financial intermediary is an institution where people who have more money meet with the people who needs money. Okay, so the main type of financial intermediaries are commercial banks, look, followed by saving and loan association like insurance company, pension fund, and etc. So these are considered as financial intermediaries. Okay. Now, so how bank create money? So usually the bank create money by taking your deposits. So people will save their money to the bank, right? So people will uh, people will deposit money to the bank. So this is bank, and bank will use the money. They will lend the money to the private sector. Yeah, private sector. Let's say that they will use the money for companies. So the bank will give some interest to the lender. Yeah, this is us, people. Yeah, let's say the bank give 2% of interest, while the bank charge the private sector, the borrower, yeah, with higher interest rate. Let's say they charge it with 11%. So the difference between the interest rate they give to the lender and the interest rate they give to the borrower, let's say the 9% difference is their profit. Yeah, of course, this is not the profit, yeah, the pure profit. This is what we call the revenue. Yeah, and then the revenue minus the operational costs minus marketing costs and etc. And then they will get the profit. So basically, there's always be a difference between the interest rate they give to the borrower and the interest rate they give to the lender. Yeah. Yeah. So this is how the bank create profit or create the bank's transaction. Now we will learn about how banks create money. So banks they have a function of creating more money in the market. And how do they do this? First, we need to understand about the bank's operation, and then by understanding the bank operation, we can understand how the bank can create money. So, uh, we have a several definition. For example, run on a bank. This is what we call a bank run or a bank crisis. This is where, yeah, where a lot of people they go to the bank to take claim on their bank deposit and present the money at the same time. Why people, if they do rush, yeah, if they rush to the bank, if there is a bank run, yeah, the bank will always have a difficulties because they put all the money on giving loans to the borrower. If people take the money, for example, we have a crisis, and then people are rushing to the bank, they want to take all their money back from the bank because of the rush. Yeah, the bank has no money, they can go bankrupt if this happen. So there'll be a difficulties when you try to take a lot of money at the same time, because sometimes the bank has no money. The money already borrowed by some borrowers. Yeah, and in order to understand how the banks create money, we need to understand the basic regulation of the central bank. Okay, so in America we have a central bank called the Fed. Yeah, so the Fed is the central bank of America, and there are two terms that we need to understand. It is the reserve and the required reserve ratio. So what is reserve? Reserve is the deposit that a bank has at the Federal Reserve Bank plus its cash on hand. Yeah, so this is the deposit that a bank has at the Federal Reserve plus its cash on hand. So let me explain you by giving you some simulation. For example, this is bank, okay? Let's say that this is bank A, yeah? This is bank B, this is bank C, okay? This is central bank. Every bank that operates in one country, they need to have an account in the central bank. And with this account, they need to deposit some money. So this deposit some money to the central bank is called the reserve. Okay, so the reserve is the amount they put the money to the central bank plus the cash on hand. This is the cash that they use to give land to daily transaction. For example, you take the money from the bank, from the ATM. This is the cash on hand. So the reserve, what does the reserve mean? This is the deposit in the central bank plus the cash on hand. All right. And there is a regulation which regulates how much we should put to the central bank. These regulations is called RRR, required reserve ratio. Okay, so there is a regulation which state how much we should put to the central bank, and this regulation is called required reserve ratio, RRR. Okay, let me move to the to the slide. Okay, so this is the accounting of banking. Look, remember, the accounting of banking is different than accounting of the private company or accounting of the individual. Yeah. Okay. If you are an individual or a private company, yeah, your asset will be a reserve, yeah, and the loan will be what? Anyone would know where the loan should be?
The liabilities.
Yeah, you're right. The loan should be in the liabilities because you have a liability to pay to somebody. So loan will be in the liabilities section. But what happened when you are bank? What is your asset? How do you make money? You make money by giving loan to other people, to other private company. That's why your loan is in the asset section. It is not in the liability. So you have a reserve. This is the money. Yeah. You put on the federal on Fed on the central bank plus cash in hand, right? Plus cash in hand, right? Yeah. So this is the reserve. And your loan, the loan that you give to other private company, it becomes what? It becomes your asset. Yeah. So this is how the accounting of banks look like. So when you give loan, it becomes your asset because you will receive asset, you will receive money, you will receive cash in the near future. Yeah. And then the deposit that you have, this is what? This is the deposit that we have. This is what? What does it mean, the deposit? Do you remember people, they put the money in the bank? Yeah. This is what we call deposit. In bahasa, we call DPK. Dana pihak ketiga. Deposit. You, me, he, she, all of our friends and family, we put the money where? To the bank, right? And this become the liability of the bank because the bank should return all of the deposit to us at a certain time. That's why they put the deposit in the liability. But if for a private company, the deposit is not in the liability section, it is in the asset section. Because when you have a deposit, mean that you have money, but you put it in the bank. Do you understand? Okay, do you understand here? Guys, any questions?
Not yet, sir.
Not yet, yeah? So once again, please, you need to be able to differentiate between the accounting of private sector and the accounting of bank. The loan that the bank gives to people, to private sector for investment and etc., they are regarded as loan, as asset. Yeah, they are treated as asset. Yeah, while the liabilities, while the deposit they receive from the people, they are regarded as liabilities. This is the most important thing that you need to know before we go further. Okay. So deposit are liability. Okay. So how the bank creates money, guys? This is maybe I will just simply explain to you because I think that you need to learn and study it by reading the book. But let me explain you just in a very simple way. Then I will let you learn by yourself. Okay, let's talk about Indonesia. Let's say that I have Bank Mandiri here, and then this is the Central Bank of Indonesia. What is the Central Bank of Indonesia called? Bank
Bank Indonesia.
Bank Indonesia. All right. Thank you, Mas. Yeah. So this is, I have Bank Mandiri, and then I have the Central Bank of Indonesia. We call this Bank Indonesia. All right. Now, we have a rule. We call this rule is required reserve ratio. It is the percentage, it is the ratio that the individual bank should put the deposit to the central bank. Let's say that we have a 10% of required reserve ratio. What does it mean? From the deposit, if I have 100 million of deposit, let's say, for example, Mas siapa? Mas siapa tadi? Mas Zaki gitu ya. Atau Mbak Mbak Farah gitu ya, atau Mbak Almira atau Raffi gitu ya. You give 100 million deposit to Bank Mandiri. What will happen? The bank should give 10% to the central bank, should deposit 10% to the central bank. How much it left with? So here 10, here it left with 90. Am I right? Because you should put 10% to, let's say, to to the central bank because of the law of 10% required rate of ratio. Right? So the 90 million is the amount that you can give to private companies. Okay, the amount that you can give to private companies for loan. Yeah. Okay, let's say that this is my company. Yeah. Raffi, do you have any idea what is the name of the company?
I'm sorry, sir.
Do you have, for example, any idea what is the name of company that we should make of? Uh,
Let's try PT Garam.
PT Gudang Garam. Yeah. Okay. So we have PT Gudang Garam. Yeah. It is a company. Yeah. Big company. They want to expand the business and they want to borrow money from Bank Mandiri. Okay. And the PT Gudang Garam, they go to Bank Mandiri, borrow the money. Okay. And then how much PT Gudang Garam can receive from Bank Mandiri? Assuming that we have 100 million of deposit from people, from the saver of Bank Mandiri, and then 10% to be put in the central bank, and then how much can be given to PT Gudang Garam? The answer is 90.
90, sir.
90. So PT Gudang Garam can borrow from Bank Mandiri 90. Now, okay, so PT Gudang Garam okay, receive 90. Let's assume that PT Gudang Garam, yeah, this Gudang Garam, they use this 90 to buy machine. So this is the machine. from, let's say, PT Innovation. How much the price of the machine? 90 million. Okay, what do you think will happen? What do you think will happen? This 90 million will move from PT Gudang Garam to PT Innovation. Yeah. And then what? And then 90, and then they bought the machine from PT Innovation. Then the 90 million goes to PT Innovation. Let's assume that PT Innovation put the money to other private bank. Let's call this Bank BRI. How much the PT Innovation can put the money to Bank BRI? They put the money of 90 million. Okay, 90 billion. And this 90 million, how much it should put to the central bank and how much it can give loan to others? Do you remember the RRR? How much is the RRR?
10%.
So 10%. So central bank, yeah, they receive 9 million, while Bank BRI only have 81 million, okay, to be given for investment for other private sector. Do you understand? Yeah. And this continue. Let's say that Bank BRI, they have 81 million to be given as a loan. And let's say that we have a new PT. Let's say PT Indofood. Let's say, this is only an example. Indofood want to expand the business. They want to build a factory and they need 81 million. Yeah, they take loan from where? PT BRI, and they get 81 million. Let's say that PT Indofood want to build a factory and they do this with a contractor. Let's say PT Contractor. This contractor then receive 81 million. Okay, this 81 million received by contractor, and then they put it at Bank BNI. They receive how much? 81 million. And from this 81 million, they have to put it in the central bank 10%, and the rest can be given as loan. What is the 10% of 81 million? It is 8.1 million, and 8.1 million, 81 deducted by 81. 81, let me, so calculate 81 minus 8.1. So the bank only have 72.9 million. Okay. Imagine the bank creates money from 100 million deposit, yeah, and then it be given to loan, yeah. Look, if we make a table, this is 100, right? And then from this 100, yeah, from this 100, the bank give loan, right? The 90 million, 10 to the bank, okay, and then 81 million. This is how much they give to the central bank. How much? 9, and then 72.9. They give 8.1. Okay, look, we have create new money. But this new money, is it come from printing new money or it is come from accounting activity? What do you think, guys? Look, how much we create the money for? Yeah, 90 plus 81 plus 72.9. So we create, yeah, almost 200. Yeah, we create almost 200 million new money, which come from a silly accounting activity of writing a 100 million deposit. Can you imagine that? Do you understand, guys? Where this money come? Is it come from depositing new money or it is come from an accounting activity? What do you think about it? If we continue this until it becomes zero, you will find that with the 10% required ratio from 100 million of deposit, it become 1,000 million or 1 billion. If you continue until the required reserve ratio becomes zero, this will sum up with 1,000 million. Meaning that from 100 million, we create 900 million of money out of nowhere. Out of nowhere. We don't give deposit no new deposit. We just accounting activities and it become 900 million. Imagine the economy is made from a fake accounting activity. Can you imagine that? This is how banks create money. And imagine if we have bank run. What does it mean bank run? It is a situation where all people, they go to the bank, yeah, they ask for their money. Hey, give me my money back. I want my deposit. I want the money that I deposit. If the bank do this, they don't have money actually. They just lend it, some accounting activities, and that's it. When the crisis happened, when the stock market crash, people rushing to the bank will have no money, and this will create a devastating impact on the economy because the economy is built on a fake activity. This is built on just a silly accounting writing activity. Is it bad for the economy? Very bad. Because you are not giving a 1 billion of money, you just give 100 million and you add another 900 million by doing some accounting activities. You are not adding nothing. No activities, just accounting activities and blah blah blah, and then you have a 900 million, and this 900 million is the multiplier of money. Okay, so this 100 million is the money multiplier. So if you have a 10% required reserve rate, you have 100 million deposit, your deposit will turn into 1 billion. It will have 900 additional million out of accounting activities. The truth is that the money is not there. It's just an accounting activities. And this is very bad for the economy. I think that's it for today. Yeah, I'm sorry I could not continue. It's already Maghrib. Yeah, I will provide with some videos just to help you learn about the rest of the material. Okay. Do you have any comments on? Would you like to ask something for today's class? I hope that this will give you an idea on how weak our money is, the fiat money is. that you should we should go back to the gold system and to the silver system to make a stronger currency. All right, so let me. I promise that I will put some video on YouTube, so that on the MyTest classroom, so that you can learn about the rest of the material. But for now, I stop it until here. And please think about, you know, uh, the influence of money, the impact of money to the economy, and please realize that we have a very bad monetary system where our money is not backed by anything, uh, especially, you know, the fiat money. Yeah. And the worst is that we have a debasing value of money, and because we don't back our money with very good commodities and very strong precious commodities, yeah, we are losing the value of money. Yeah, imagine, like, for example, uh, we uh, we used to buy bakso, for example, yeah, 7,000 rupiah, as it was said by, I don't know, Mas Rafi, ya kalau nggak salah tadi. Mas Rafi said that he used to buy bakso for 7,000 rupiah, but now we have to pay more than 15,000 just to get a portion of bakso. I think this is the debasement of our money, and it shows that our money is not strong anymore. Yeah, thank you so much. I'm sorry I could not finish up the course material, but I will upload some video just to make you realize about how the banks create money and how weak our monetary system. If you have any question, please, you can ask. Okay, then, can I wrap up the class? Have you already scanned the attendance code? Okay. Thank you so much. I don't know, I will see you next week. Yeah, hopefully. And sorry again, I could not continue. Yeah. But I promise I will upload some video to help you study. Okay. Thank you. See you later. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. Thank you
Thank
very